Hi, this is Mike Ignatoski, the creator of GreenFox, the spreadsheet that uses Excel programming to make it behave like an electronic baseball score sheet or scorebook, and it automatically computes the game stats, which can be a big-time time saver. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you find this video helpful. In this video, I'd like to talk about a feature in GreenFox 2.0 where you can set up the spreadsheet to follow the schedule and all the starting lineups for games in a single major league season, like 1972 or 1985 or whatever season you'd like to play the games for or play some of the games from. This version of GreenFox can do that, and let's see how to set it up. Within GreenFox 2.0, there's a new sheet called LG Help. So down here at the bottom, I'm going to click that, and you can see it talks about these two new versions or new modes of scoresheet operation, which are called league modes. One is called the historical team season, HTS, of which there's another video that discusses that in more detail. And the other league mode is called historical league season, where it follows the schedule and lineups for a whole year or whatever season you're interested in. And in both of these modes of operation, the spreadsheet can track all the stats for all the players in all the games, whatever games are played. And that's one of the most attractive and exciting things about these two new league modes of GreenFox is to be able to track those cumulative stats. So let's focus on how to set up an HLS league. So in this example, or in this tutorial, I'm going to show how to set up GreenFox Historical League Season or HLS mode for the 1968 season. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So the first thing here where it just says, start with a clean spreadsheet. Secondly, it says we're going to need a file from the GreenFox Facebook group that has some retro sheet data that has this lineup and the schedule data contained in it. We'll get to that more in a second. Where we're going to start here first is over on the main score sheet. It says you need to change the mode to league. That's what we're going to go do first. So let's go over to the score sheet mode or score sheet. Up here's the mode. By default, it's in free play, which is the only mode that's been available up until now. You can see if I hover on it, it tells me the two additional modes that are now available. I'm going to click this. It says, hey, do you want to change it to league play? Here, it isn't asking me which specific mode. It's just saying league play in general. And it's just telling me that I'm going to have to configure the league. It doesn't just magically do it. It doesn't know what you want. So I'm going to say yes. Here it tells me some more info. Basically that it's going to add some new sheets to the spreadsheet, that there's some help on the LG help sheet that we already looked at briefly, that we will need the appropriate GreenFox compatible retro sheet data, and we'll grab that in a minute, and that the score sheet mode will remain question mark league until we've completed our league configuration, and then it'll kind of drop into its official league HLS mode. So let's say OK with that. And with that, you can see here it bumped us back to the LG help sheet, which we were at the very beginning, but you can see here it added all these new sheets. The league, the standings, the schedule, this MPL. We'll talk about these later in the video. But if we follow these instructions here, we're on to number 4, which it says decide on your season or year for your historical replay. I'm doing 68 for this example, and download the applicable GreenFox retro sheet Excel data file from the GreenFox Facebook group files area. So that's what I'm going to do. It says for 1984 you'd go for the retro GF retro 1980s, but we're going to find the one that works for 1968. So let's go to the GreenFox Facebook group, and if you're not in the GreenFox Facebook group, you'll have to join, ask to join, answer a couple questions to get in and agree to the rules, and then you can get in and have access to the GreenFox spreadsheet and the files. So here's the main landing page for the Facebook group. It said go to the files section, so I'm going to go over here to the files, scroll down to look at the files, and you can see here's the new version of the GreenFox spreadsheet itself, and underneath it are all these GF_retro files that have different years after them depending on what they can, the data that they contain. So in my example, let's say we're looking for 1968, so that's going to be in the 60s. But you can see here, you can get anything from 1901 all the way up through 2019 right now. Just you have to pick the right file. So if I want 68, I'm going to click this 60s. It brings me back to this original post where this file was uploaded that I did, and here it just tells me that this has the GreenFox retro sheet data for season 60 to 69. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to click this. Then it brings me to the download page. I'm just going to download it to my desktop and say save it. I'm going to open it up, and this is what it looks like. It's kind of this this is just an acknowledgement to where the data came from the retrosheet.org and the Sean Lahman Baseball Database. But the main thing is down here at the bottom are these tabs with the years. So for each year, this is all the data that the GreenFox spreadsheet needs about all the games, when they were played, and what the starting lineup were. So you don't have to really do anything other than just leave this open. But one thing I want to point out is this up here, this protected view warning, that if you get this, you need to click this enable for it to work. Even though we're not going to edit this, but you need it just to access it. So I'm going to click this enable editing, and once that's done, I'm just going to minimize this, but I'm going to leave it open. It's important. It's got to be open. So, okay, so we just did that, and we did number 5, which was open the spreadsheet. And now it says within the GreenFox workbook, activate the league tab. And that's what I'm going to go do. Down here is the league tab. So here we are. Now we can configure the rest of the setup here. Okay, so our next step to configure our historical league season is going to be to set the mode, league mode. You can see it says start here, select league mode. If we hover on this, it'll tell us what the different modes are. We already pretty much know there's HTS and HLS, but if I click in the mode, it gives me a little drop down, and I can choose the mode. These bottom two are hopefully future options, but right now they don't work. So these are the two that do work. We're going to choose HLS, or the historical league season. So I'm going to choose that, and then two things happen. One, I get this pop-up that's telling me telling me to enter the season year up here, but also it reveals this big colorful help blurb that is basically telling you the same steps that we're doing now and that are on the LG help sheet itself on how to configure this HLS historical league season. So let's kind of follow this here. Enter the year. So you can see here we're kind of on step 2 down here. So it activates that cell. It says enter the 4-digit year. I say, all right, I want 1968. Oops. If I say enter, the fact that it listed the teams here tells me that it found that GF retro spreadsheet that we have open, and that's where it got these teams from. And then it says click the big purple button to load the retro sheet. So we'll do that in a second when I close this. But you can also see it put their team IDs. It also listed this division here. And in league mode or league season mode, it fills in this division. It also fills in these two things here below the mode, which are the number of sub-leagues, which here it says 2, and the number of divisions per sub-league. And what that translates to, I can hover on this, but basically sub-leagues are like the American and the National League. You know, if the whole thing's Major League, then it has these two sub-leagues called the American and National, or like in the NFL they'd be conferences. But for baseball it makes it difficult because they're all leagues. So those are the two are the American and National League, and then this divisions per sub league. If you recall, in '68 they didn't really have divisions; they just had leagues. So, but because in GreenFox, it's every sub league's got to have at least one division. So they only have one. You know, in current day, in 2020s, there'd be 3 divisions per sub league because there's 3 divisions in each of the American and National League. But anyway, so that's what this 2 and this 1 do. And it also then, over here in this box here where it says sub-league and division custom names, it automatically fills them in for you as the sub-league as American and National, and this one division as the American and National. You could change them if you wanted to here, but we don't have to. But these division column here, this R and L1 relate over here to the L sub-league is the American League and the R sub-league is the National. The L and the R mean they just stand for left and right. When you look at the standings, this league will be on the left, this one will be on the right. So that's just how I set it up. So when you look over here, R1 is basically like National League and L1 is the American League. But anyway, it also, you can see it said I found 20 teams and here they are. Okay, so if we remember what it told us after we clicked this, it said click the purple button, which is this thing, and that's what loads all the data from 1968, since that's what we chose here. So I'm going to click that. It gives us a message that says, hey, this could take a couple minutes, so be patient. I'm going to say okay. It's going to go through some Excel calisthenics and gyrations. I needed some sound effects for this, but I don't have any. And it'll crunch through this data to build the schedule, to build the master player list, and to build the rosters. And hopefully you'll get this message. It says success. It used the historical data and populated it into these sheets, the league, the MPL, the rosters, the schedule, and actually, yeah. It says take a brief look at it and make sure that they contain reasonable data. And then you can click the black Validate League Settings button to guide you through the remaining steps to configure your league. So let's just make sure that let's just take a brief look at what these are. So here we have the schedule, and it says in 1968 there's 1,625 games. That sounds right. This looks good. I don't see any blank rows or things like that. This MPL, which is the master player list, this says there were 676 different players that played in 1968 in the majors, and here are all of them. But they're only listed once. So over here it gives this little heads up on it says if a player played for multiple teams, like you can see here in this multi-team list, this identifies players that played for multiple teams during the year. Whether it's Clay Carroll or Woody Woodward, these guys played for the Braves and the Reds. But they're only listed with their first team. So Woody Woodward is on the Braves, but if I went down to the Reds, you know, he's not going to be here. So the idea of the master player list means that each player is only listed once. And this ID column you can pretty much ignore. But I left it here because it does reference, I think this is the retro sheet player ID. So I left it there, and it is used behind the scenes in this program or in the spreadsheet, but it's not something you really need to worry about or shouldn't need to worry about. The important thing that GreenFox provides is this lineup name column, and what's nice about it is it ensures that for any given year all of these lineup names are unique. And so if there happen to be two Dave Roberts or Hal Smith or whatever, it modified one of them or both so that whether they have the middle initial or something else such that they're all unique. So every place that you need to show the player, the lineup name will suffice. This column here, this primary role is hitter or pitcher, H or P. Yeah, we talked about this multi-team list. This positions and these batter info and pitcher info we'll talk about later in another video. I don't want to get bogged down in that right now. But basically that's the master player list. The rosters are almost the same, except they have every player that played for each team. So kind of like we just talked about this Woody Woodward. Here he is for the Braves, but in here he'd also be on the Reds. I'll use one of these Excel filters here and say, okay, let's go down to Woody Woodward. And you can see here he is. Here's his Atlanta Brave roster row, and here's his Cincinnati Reds row. So that's really the only difference in the MPL and the rosters is the rosters have basically duplicates because a player has a row for each team they played for. I'm just going to clear that. And now we're back to all the players. Okay. And we'll get to these stats in another video. We'll talk about these. So back to the league sheet. We successfully loaded all the data from 1968, and now you can see in this status cell it says data loaded, which is good. We can see here that these things seem like we need to do something, but I'm going to just click this validate league button as directed or suggested by the pop-up message, and we'll see what it does. So by clicking it, it basically directs us over to this place and says, hey, your league ID's messed up. You need to put something in there from 3 to 10 characters, and it has to be alphanumeric. You can't put in special characters or spaces, just letters and numbers. And this is just so that I can kind of track the league, and it'll put it on the score sheet. That's why it can't be that big. So I'm just going to write 1968. And I can see here I might as well enter my league name, and I'm going to call this my 1968 Sim Baseball Replay, or something like that. This has a character limit too. I think it's around 30 or 28 or something like that. So I've done that. I'm going to click this validate again to see what I have to do. If anything to validate tells you need to fix, you try to fix it and come back and hit the button again. Kind of like those Price is Right games. So let's try it again. So now it gives me a different message. It says the number of teams in a division is constrained by these limits. R1 and L1 can have up to 24 teams, and all other divisions have up to 10. These limits will be checked as the teams are populated into the standings sheet. Okay, so in general, you can just click OK here for these league setups. So nothing's, as long as you don't change anything, everything's good. But this is really just more made for custom leagues that maybe you could make up your own number of divisions and own number of teams. But that's how this that's what this is saying. So I'm going to click OK, and you can see what it did was it created this standings for my 1968. Here's the name of my league. Here are the names of my sub-leagues, this American International, and here are the names of my division, American International. And then it says, hey, great job, this worked. We made your standings. And if you need to alter your configuration, you'll need to revalidate it so that it'll update your standings. Okay, but for the most part, you shouldn't have to. If you don't change anything, it should be all good. I'm just going to click OK. It brings me back to the league page and gives me this message of joy saying, success, the league configuration appears to be valid. And now it says I may want to configure the custom info and rating data for my league's players. You know, it's best to be done from the MPL sheet, and you can do this at any time during your league. I could do some now, I could change it later. I'm going to make another video talk about that because it's not required for the league, but it depends on your game that you're playing whether you want to use that custom information per player or not. At the bottom here it says you can do that, or you can just go click the big green button that says activate league play to get your score sheet ready for the game. And that's what we're going to do here. So I say OK, click the big green button. It says it's going to clear the score sheet. I say great, go ahead. And it tells me it's setting the score sheet to league play, that it was successful in setting it that way, and I can click the game ID to load a game lineup for a game. So those are the basic steps to configure your league and to get your score sheet ready for league play. Once the league has been successfully configured and you're back on the spreadsheet mode and it says League HLS, you can now safely close the retro sheet spreadsheet because it's no longer needed. That's only needed to load the schedule and those player files. So you could go over to that GF retro, whatever it's one you have open, and close that, because once your league is configured, it doesn't reference it anymore. This is true for both HLS mode and HTS mode. So let's load a game and see how that works. A couple things I'll mention on this spreadsheet now that we're officially in league mode. So you can see the mode says League HLS, Historical League Season. It added, or it shows these two new buttons over here, Reload League Info and Show Hide the ID column. Here's the ID column. And you could, for the most part, you should be able to ignore this, but I left it in here in case we run into some problems and I need to help people debug or find what the problem is. I left it in here because that's why I created it in the first place. But if you, I'll just click it here to hide this ID. That's all it does, is it shows or hides this column. I'm going to hide it because it lets me see more of my stats sheet. And the other most important thing it does is gives you this big green button here that says save the league game in stats and results. So when you're done with your game, you compute your stats, you make sure they're all right to the best of your knowledge. You can click this button, and this is what saves it down into these stat sheets. And I'm going to make another video to explain these stat sheet tabs. But for right now, let's just finish this up. And how do we get a game in here? So as instructed or advised, it says click the game ID. So I'm going to click the game ID, and as you can see here, it also shows our league ID there. Click this game ID. It automatically jumps us over to the schedule sheet, and it tells us the same thing. Pick the ID of what you want to play. Here are all the games. I could pick any one. It doesn't really care. It doesn't make you play them in order, but like the Wizard of Oz says, the best place to start is at the beginning. So let's do that here. So I'm going to click this game one. It should be Catfish Hunter going up against Tom Phobos, or Phoebus, however you say his name. Let's do that. Let's click it, and here we are. It's all done. It's got this, our game ID is up here, our description, which is who's playing who and where it is, the starting pitcher for the Orioles, the starting lineup for the A's. You can see here, since there's no DH, so Catfish Hunter is batting ninth. If we look down here at the Orioles, here's their lineup. They're going up against Catfish Hunter. And now you play your game just like you played it before in GreenFox to keep score. And with that, I'm going to wrap this video up. So hopefully this was helpful. So now it's just a matter of playing the game and scoring the game as done in earlier versions of GreenFox. Though I will say in GreenFox 2.0 there are some new features that relate to the score sheet, and I would suggest you watch. There's a video that I created that focuses just on the new score sheet features of GreenFox 2.0 to see what those are. Well, that wraps up this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you found it informative and helpful. Please feel free to leave me some comments and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to be alerted when I post new videos. I hope that the GreenFox spreadsheet will save you time in keeping score and doing the game stats of your games, resulting in giving you more time to play the games that you want to play.